My name is Ben Woodard. I'm a product designer here at Keencut, and today I'm going to show you the fundamentals of how to attach a Keencut bench extension to a Keencut bench. So it's worth mentioning before I start here that although this is a 15-minute seminar, this process will take a little bit longer than 15 minutes. So I'm going to show you the techniques of how to do it and why it's done that way, and hopefully that will help you when it comes to actually adding your extension yourself. So if we jump straight in, the first things that you're going to need are this leg to beam bracket that would have come with your extension. You would have seen it as well when you would have been assembling your original bench, and also these grub screws. So these grub screws, you've got a flat end here where the Allen key will go in, but you've also got a pointy end, just like that. So the first process, the way that I like to do it, just because actually it tends to be a bit fiddly and it's good to just do it all in one go, is you get all of your leg to beam brackets and you get all of your grub screws, and what you do is you put them in. So the first thing to do on this flat face, because you have a curved face and a flat face, on the flat face you take your first grub screw, the pointy end goes into the first hole, okay? Just like that. And you tighten it until that point is flush with this face. Do not tighten it any further because it will essentially cause problems further down the line when it comes to tightening other grub screws. But if you put it in this much, just so that it's flush or just below the surface of this face, you'll be fine. So you do that for both this one and this one, like so. See, just like that. And then this hole at the end, you take your grub screw and you actually take the flat end on this one and you put it in and you turn it in backwards. See, like this. Now, you want to turn this in just to save collisions further down the line. You want to turn it in until this point is in line with this curved edge. See? Just like that. Okay, so now you've got your miniature assembly. I'm going to show you how to essentially attach this to your leg. So the leg extrusion, this one is the larger of the two extrusions. You'll see it's a square shape, it's 40 millimeters by 40 millimeters, and it's got this little tongue, these two little tongues in each of these grooves. So the first thing that you do is you take your leg to beam bracket with your grub screws and you slide it in. It's worth mentioning that whenever you're putting in these leg to beam brackets, you always want this flat face to be facing inwards. So if you imagine this section, if you imagine this edge of your leg is actually the external, this will be the internal. So by external, I mean sort of, this is the outside edge, and internal, obviously, inside. So what we're wanting to achieve with this, the way that these grub screws are so clever and the way that they actually lock your whole bench into place is by creating one of these little divots. If you can see there, this is created by tightening the grub screws with a certain technique and a good amount of force in order to make sure that the leg to beam bracket will not move up and down once it is assembled. So what we do is you take this spacer that would have been sent with your extension. It's essentially just a section of beam section, and what you want to do is slot it over the top of your leg to beam bracket, slide it until it is at the end, and what you're looking for is you want this to be completely flush. Okay? What I like to do at this stage, and the main reason as to why I put these screws in beforehand, is I like to pull forward to hold that beam bracket in place. This way, when I take this spacer off, I know that this isn't going to move because it's held in place by friction. Then what I do is in this hole here, that's where you put your third grub screw earlier, is you tighten this and you'll feel it come to a stop. Now sometimes people think that at that stop that's enough, but in reality it's literally just hit that first section of the tongue that we were talking about earlier. And what you need to do at this point is actually tighten it a further 3 half turns. So there's 1, 2, so that actually only did 2.5 half turns, and that was enough for it, but it does tend to vary. So essentially we've learned how to attach the leg to beam bracket to a leg. The process for attaching it to a beam is exactly the same. So what we want to do is we want to get some of our beam section, and you've got your 2 screws that are here. And then what you do is you slide your beam onto your leg to beam bracket, fix it there. There you go. So now what we need to do is we need to make sure that these 2 surfaces are as close to each other as they can possibly be. The best way to do this is to sort of, apply as much force as you can from behind, but also try and make sure that it's level. So what I like to do is tighten the back one first, just till it hits a stop, then tighten the front one till it hits a stop. Then have a look. You see, you might not be able to see it from there, but I can see a little bit of a gap. You see there's a little bit of movement in there. So what I'll do now is I'll apply a little bit more force, loosen slightly, and then re-tighten them both a bit tighter. There. So that's in place. Now, similar to the other grub screw, what you have to do is do some additional half turns to make that divot, because similar to the leg extrusion, these have these 2 little tongues here as well. So now you know how to attach a leg to beam bracket to a leg to beam bracket to a beam. And now, through a series of images, we're actually going to show the process of how to attach all of the pieces together in the correct order, and how to attach that assembly to your bench. The first step here is to make a frame that would be the outer edge of your extension. You take the leg section and the beam section, and in the way that I showed you previously, you attach the leg to beam brackets in the location that they need to be, and you go from left to right. So you start with the left leg and you attach the beams to the left leg, and then attach the right leg to the beams that you've attached. It's important to make sure that the leg to beam brackets on both the extension and the bench align with each other. The best way to do this is to make sure that the distance from the bottom of the leg on both the bench and the extension have the same distance between them. So you can make a spacer that essentially would be a set distance and use that as a guide. The final step to complete your framework is to attach a foot to the base. You slide the foot up into the leg and you tighten the grub screw in the same way that you would with the leg to beam bracket. Once you're happy with your framework and your feet are attached, the final step is to get the remaining beams that will connect your extension to your existing bench. You align all of the leg to beam brackets in one go, and you bring it all together at once. Once you've pushed it all together, you make sure that all the legs are flush with the beams. You tighten all of the grub screws as shown previously. The final step before you're good to go is to make sure that your bench is in line with your extension. The best way to do that is to adjust the feet and use a spirit level. The best way to ensure that your extension is level is to essentially imagine that your existing bench is the anchor point. So because your existing bench would have been leveled previously when you'd set it up, you can see that as a level point. So you would want to measure from, let's say, the far left beam. You want to put your spirit level on that beam, and you'd be adjusting this highlighted foot. So what you do, if the bubble isn't in the center of the spirit level, you either loosen or tighten the adjustable foot until it is. So once you're happy with the previous level, you move the spirit level to the next beam and repeat the process, but with the next foot. Depending on the extension that you have, it could be longer, it could be multiple sections. This is a process that would just have to be repeated several times. Once you're happy with the level that your bench is sat at, that you need to lock off the foot itself. And you'll see on each of the feet, it's got a little nut that you can tighten with a 13mm spanner to lock the foot in place so that it won't move up or down once you put it in position. Once all of the nuts on the extension are tightened and your bench is level, you're good to go.